Hello, this is Michael Campbell with Glossica, and I'm really honored to be here today with Alexander Argüelles. And Alexander is known throughout the world for being one of the most prominent polyglots who has studied and speaks fluently dozens of languages, maybe even 100 by now, I'm not sure. But it's a very large number of languages. And all of these accomplishments having been said, he's now working on a new vision and to really help people with their language learning throughout the world. And we'd like to hear more about all of the projects he's working on and all of the new developments in your life recently. So thank you for this opportunity to meet you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Just to clarify something, I mean, I do love languages. I'm passionate about it. I've been doing it professionally, systematically, in a very disciplined fashion most of my life. I have probably studied about 100 languages, but studied and be able to use fluent, I think they're very different things. So I have some form of knowledge of 100 languages, but you've got a very vast database in your head as well. So it's been a real pleasure talking to you about Argüelles languages and things like that. So
we'd like to throw out the little bit of exaggerations there anyway.
Okay, very good, very good. You want to know?
But in reality, we all struggle to actually bring that fluency to life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's limitations to the human capacity.
Right. There certainly are.
At least there is for me. I can't compare with you.
There's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah, that's true.
That's an experience that I ran into a brick wall of that about 20 years ago after I'd spent so much time being passionate about learning as many languages as I possibly could. And I realized after a certain point, hey, wait a minute, if you study systematically in a disciplined fashion every day for 15 minutes a day, you can go from knowing nothing to having a solid foundation in a year. But if you want to go up to the next level, a solid foundation to a real basic functional working knowledge, that needs half an hour a day. And then if you want to go to a higher level, that needs an hour a day. And even a higher level, many hours a day.
This is perhaps the key to language learning right here. 15 minutes a day.
Each and every single day.
Each and every day. For how long?
Well, it depends on the language. If the language is similar to yours. If
it's Korean to English, then
that would take a couple of years, maybe.
A couple of years at 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
But if you increase that to half an hour a day,
definitely you could get a solid foundation. I think within a year and a half.
And then if you're doing an hour a day and more intensively, it really changes the time window to acquiring the language.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. And so what you did originally was kind of structure your day, so you're doing in different time slots, you'd be working on different languages. So
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I got started studying basically comparative historical linguistics in university. I got my doctorate in an area like that, and so I just went through a whole cycle of all the older Germanic languages and just got a deep philological understanding too of how Latin changed into the modern Romance languages. And so from there I branched out into Korean just because I wanted the challenge of learning a really totally different language in the culture. And then while I was in Korea, also did your areas, Japanese, Chinese, classical Chinese, for a while. And that's when I started building my language laboratory and just had material for studying, hundreds of languages, and just wanted to learn for various reasons. I wanted to learn some languages because they were in a family that I knew everything else already, and I wanted to know them all. I wanted to learn other languages because they were different. I wanted to see what they were like. So I spent about 5 or 6 years just obsessively, fanatically studying languages all day, every day, in those 10, 15-minute time slots, and then working at them. And then at the end of that time period, realized, getting that foundation is one thing, but taking some of them that are really meaningful to me, like Arabic, to the much higher level, that requires just an investment of time that, given our lifespans and, the way the day is structured, night and day, there's just only so many hours in a day. So that's the limit is that.
As far as getting a general introductory knowledge of a language, you get to the point where you've accumulated so much experiences across a vast number of languages and language families that when you see something new, although it's different, you can almost piece it together in your mind because you kind of know how human communication works already. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to give my talk on my experience learning Finnish in about 2 hours, and that's basically what I'm going to report, is that Finnish is totally different from any language I've studied, in that, it's an Uralic language. I've never learned an Uralic language before. It's the vocabulary is basically unrelated to anything else. But when I looked at the structure, when I looked at the grammar, it was just like simplified, streamlined Korean, with a sprinkling of inflections thrown in. There was nothing I hadn't seen before.
Great.
So I looked at this, and it's like, Finnish has this reputation of being pretty difficult, but then I looked at it and it's like, no, based on my experience, there's no challenge there.
It's something that you've done. So actually, for a Korean speaker, Finnish probably makes a lot of sense, despite the vocabulary difference.
Yeah, I've ran into that many times now, that Koreans, a lot of them are missionaries, might go to South America and be in Peru and encounter Quechua, or clandestinely in a place like Turkey and learning Turkish, or yes, learning something like, another agglutinated language, and it's like, hey, this is easy. The structure there does seem to be blended. There's a lot of transfer that you can get of knowledge of structure, not just real vocabulary or specific endings, but just the basic structure.
So in your whole career, what do you envision as your opus magnum? Are you still working on that? What are your passions in envisioning for the final stage?
I am, for many years I have dreamed about, just sort of, again, I reached my limits of what I can do in my time. And I like sharing my passion, I like sharing my knowledge. I do believe that that's something that can be transferred as well. I mean, it took me a long time to develop some of the knowledge, the know-how, the skills that I have, and I do think that that's something I can, just as you can transfer your knowledge of one language, I think those are things that I could transfer to other people, so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel and learn how to do that. And so I do think that there might be a way, a place for, sort of an academy, not necessarily for polyglottery, but for people who are really serious and passionate about learning languages. This is happening all over the world, particularly in the States, that, universities and schools are closing language departments, and I think when that happens, maybe 60 or 70% of people are happy, but the 20 or 30% are unhappy. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? These people need to be more self-sufficient in their learning as well. So I've always enjoyed sharing knowledge, sharing know-how with other people, hoping that this will facilitate their quest, their learning, so that they can do it more efficiently, not waste time, and have a better experience, and just get better at it. So I've sort of envisioned this sort of academy or institute or training place for a long time, and now I find myself in a professional position where I think I'm actually going to be able to do it. That is at Concordia Language Villages in Minnesota, where I'm the director of the intensive immersion programs for Italian, German, Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, and Finnish. And they have about 15 languages, and they're open to others. And this is many of the professorships I've held around the world, because in my got a multidisciplinary degree that has the word history in it several times: comparative history of religions, comparative historical linguistics, history this, history that.
Oh, you
universities,
have comparative religions too.
Yep.
Wow.
So
okay.
Universities will look at that and say, oh, history, we need a history professor. So in Dubai, I was teaching history, and that was interesting for me. I was teaching Middle East history. I was learning more about the Middle East. I was using my Arabic to do that. But in many of my positions, I have felt like I've been hired abroad as an American. Oh, we want an American. Here's a smart guy. He's got a good background. Yeah, there's, but they're not really interested in me, who I am, what I can do. This position, they are. They know exactly who I am. They know what I want to do. And what I stand for. If people are interested in coming to a place where they can learn efficiently, learn how to learn, and do these kind of things, I'm in a position to set that up. I've got that resource library. I think I have materials for learning 142 different languages.
Oh.
I don't have many Taiwanese indigenous languages. Maybe you'll share some of those. I'll get a larger collection. But sure. I've got this massive, and it really breaks my heart that I say, anybody want to borrow it, you can, and nobody does. So I would love to be in a place where people could come, take these things, use the material, learn how they're doing, and in particular the languages that are taught at Concordia. Go to these villages first and foremost, have an experience similar to what I had in Finnish, which was a very positive, active immersion experience from the word go that was very productive. And then I think everybody taking their experience, once you can do that with one language, you could recreate that. You could learn how to do that more and more effectively with others. So I guess I'm kind of picking up from I have two sons, one's 16, one's 14. I've been homeschooling them all through high school, teaching them lots of languages. I've always spoken French with them, spoken German, Latin, Spanish, a little bit of Russian, Korean. And so, yeah, sharing languages with my sons first and foremost, and with other people who were, may be interested in them. That's where my vision is now. I don't think the brain can really get full, but I've done what I need, what I want for myself with languages. I don't have this burning desire to go master Tibetan or to do other things, but it's more to help other people at this point.
So I've found that because most of the people that we interact with in the world, their primary focus in life is not languages. They have careers in the sciences or in other professions. But I've found that if people were to spend more time on working with languages, it's sort of a logical thing that can actually help them in their other careers. Do you have a position on this? Do you think that people spending a little bit more time working with a variety of languages rather than kind of as an exercise, a brain exercise, do you think that would actually help them in their careers?
Yes, but then again, I'm speaking as a language lover, but I do think that there's science behind it that says that, well, not even necessarily science. I mean, language, is a vehicle of culture, and just learning different cultures have different perspectives, different ways of doing things. And so when you really learn a different language, you learn a different culture, that expands your horizons. And that can be seen as purely practical. Okay, you could forget about languages and just go and be a businessman in China based on that. You could transfer those skills, so you could just take that. But even within what you're doing, when you understand what makes other people tick, how they work, I think that's something you could transfer to anything.
It does expand people's their view of the world and become more, I guess, as the Chinese say, 包容. They become more acceptable of the differences in the world, because oftentimes I find that living in another culture, I may have been taught to do something a certain way. In another culture, they do it another way. The final result is the same. So why get upset if somebody wants to do something a different way, right? I'd like to ask you a question. Do you ever find that motivation is sometimes a problem with your students, and how do you overcome that?
Motivation to learn language?
To learn a language, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's a critical thing.
And how do you address that?
God, to be perfectly frank, there are some students, you look at them and you would have to give it a more honest and say, if you're not motivated, you shouldn't be doing this. I mean, there's lots of things to do in life other than, than learn languages. And if you're not absolutely required to do this and you're not motivated to do it, then go do something that you're motivated for,
Okay, all right.
So, but, I think that motivation becomes a problem when there's a dichotomy, when somebody says, I really want to learn this language, but their behavior, their action, their study habits, whatnot, betray that they've got conflicting motivation, they have other motivation, that they're not clear about it.
Okay.
So again, the ones who, I don't think everybody should study languages. I don't think everybody should do anything. I think, there's a lot of things other people should be doing. So when somebody comes and they don't have no motivation to learn a language, it's, what are you doing this for?
It's sometimes like I hear friends saying, I want to lose weight, but they're never able to take the weight off, right? So
but there are people who say, who adamantly say you want to learn a language,
right.
And then it's the same sort of, I don't know, I do think that there can be, maybe there should more often be sort of I want to say spiritual is a bit strong, but a discipline, a practice area, or an attitude, a lifestyle of learning languages. If you come to me and you say, hey, I really want to learn this language, but I say, just like the weight loss or the other people who sign up for things, they're not doing it, that's what I would say. Okay, look, you brush your teeth every day, right? You do some. There are things that you do every day. So every habit is the way we get things done. So make it a habit.
It was great talking to you today, and thank you for having sharing all of your insights on language learning.
Okay.
And I wish you all the success with that vision.
Thank you. Okay.